This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is why the Niconico Pride is such a firm favourite.
It's Kinky Tail.
He just looks ready for a fight. This is still her territory. The Evoker boys are here to stay. How insane was that?
At Safari Live are absolutely addicted to drama, which is why the theme of this week's Safari Lives is fight or fright. Flight. Or fright, I suppose. It's equally terrifying. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon, Jean-Dre is on camera with me. He's standing a safe distance away because, of course, we wouldn't want him to get hurt if I get just the slightest bit stressed. Now, Safari Lives, of course, I can't talk with my hands right now. Safari Lives, of course, is the opportunity for us to discuss the happenings of the week here on Djuma Private Game Reserve, as well as in the Masai Mara of Kenya. It is, as always, an interactive safari, which means that you send through your questions, and you do that on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, alternatively in the comments section of the YouTube chat. And of course, it's our opportunity for us to really get in touch with what the various animals of this area have been up to, and what a week it has been for both those in Djuma and, of course, up in the Mara as well.
Long summer days are noticeably shortened, and a winter's chill has been creeping over Djuma. Princess Tlalamba has proved that she can hold her own without her mother, while her father was occupied with romantic endeavours in the north. Romance was a popular theme of the week, with pairings of both the Evoker male and Amber Eyes, as well as the bubbling emotions of Scuba Steve and Snorkel Sarah. Hukumuri had a close encounter with Steve this week, very close to the hyena den. In the Masai Mara, the Owino Pride's movement have been restricted by the presence of small cubs, while the Olololo Pride have stuck to familiar ground. Busara, the cheetah's exploration of the Mara Triangle, eventually secured her a meal, fortunately a long way from North Clan lands.
So, those are the dramatics of the past week in Djuma and in the Masai Mara. You, of course, some of you will know exactly what's happened. For others, it'll be your opportunity to catch up on things. We're going to be talking about the instinctive response of the various animals that we follow to a stress situation just like that, where you have to choose to fight or run away, or the third option, of course, being freeze. Now, I'm not very fast, which leaves me with only one option, and given that I'm very, very strong and really quite enormously built, it is the perfect option. And you want to know something really disgusting? I pulled these out of the exercise bin outside of camp. So as soon as we finish with Safari Lives, and in fact, if I'm still here in 2 hours, it's because I've magically been able to resist the temptation to run home and scrub my hands with antiseptic, and my legs as well. It's really very sweaty in here. It's a very sweaty afternoon all around. I imagine Tristan is in slightly the same boat, or probably not quite as smelly.
It is indeed, Jamie. It is a very, very sweaty afternoon. It's hot. It's probably the hottest day that I've had since I've been back from leave. Seb, what do you think? Yes. Yes, you just came back a few days ago, but it's definitely the hottest day we've had in a while. But as Jamie mentioned, my name is Tristan, and as you probably gathered, Sebastian is on camera this afternoon for another edition of Safari Lives, where we focus on our characters, and today specifically on fight or flight. Now, talking about fight or flight, we're in the Mulwati at the moment, and the reason we're down here is because, well, not because of these guys. There's some Nyala in front of us who do not look like they are fighting or flighting anywhere at this stage. But we had elephants going absolutely crazy at about 11:15, somewhere there. They were trumpeting and charging up and down, and it was in this area. And so I came down here and we found elephant tracks everywhere. So I'm just trying to have a little look to see. Generally, when elephants go crazy like that, there could be only a few reasons for it. It might be one, that there's a big bull that is harassing them and they're getting very uncomfortable with this bull that's constantly there, and there's some babies and they charge around and make a bit of a noise. The other two, which are probably more important, is that they behave like that when they see two predators in particular. So a leopard is not something they get too kind of worked up about. Generally, leopards, they'll kind of flare their ears, they might let out a short trumpet and they'll just kind of move past them, but they get very upset for lions and wild dogs. And so we know that there was wild dogs around yesterday and that there were lions around this morning, so it's a worthwhile place to check. But when you see these guys as relaxed as this, I would imagine that they probably nothing really around in this exact area, but we'll keep scratching. We're going to just check these elephant tracks and see where they went and see where we can find if they were running or charging, and see if we can pick up any tracks for anything else. It would be nice if it was a leopard, because obviously this afternoon we're going to be trying to look for spots as we generally do. You can see I just mentioned leopard, and that Nyala just about kind of got the biggest fright of its life. It's popped its head up, and to listen at the word leopard, it says no, I can't deal with that. And well, that's probably right, because leopards are incredibly good hunters, and earlier this week Hukumuri showed just how good a hunter he can be.
A prickly meal lay ahead as Hukumuri made his way onto Djuma, much to our excitement. Before he could get to his meal, he took some time out to roll in a spot of buffalo dung. He scent marked his way as he proved he's still the dominant force in the West. What exactly it is remains a mystery, but something about a porcupine is just irresistible enough for a leopard to risk his own health for the sake of tasting its sweet reward. Quills sticking to his face and paws testify to just how difficult it is to kill a porcupine. And after filling his belly with the sweet meat, he took the time to groom his war wounds and clean his magnificent coat.
Very, very, very cool to see Hukumuri managing to grab a porcupine. Leopards, male leopards particularly, are actually very good at hunting them. It's a tricky meal to get, and so to see him successful and to see that he managed to grab one is very, very cool, and hopefully we'll be able to find him somewhere this afternoon, potentially doing the same. What was interesting about that porcupine kill was just how opportunistic it was. You saw he was kind of rolling in buffalo dung, scent marking, which is generally just a territorial patrol, but as he was going along, he managed to hear something in one of those termite mounds, got in and managed to grab that porcupine and then up into the tree and have a really good feed. Right, we're going to go off looking for him, and we'll see what else we can find in this area where the elephants were in distress. In the meantime, though, let's send you all the way up to the Masai Mara. Let's see how warm it is up that side and see what Lauren's plans are for the afternoon.
And we have a huge cat, a male lion, walking right in front of our vehicle at this very moment on this extremely hot day in the Masai Mara. Now, my name is Lauren, and on camera I have Bunji Bungay. Now, this male lion we have just spotted, and I'm not entirely sure exactly who he is yet. We've only been following him from behind, so I've honestly not had a very good look at his face, and you can see we're getting a look at him, but obviously behind all that grass we're not really getting a look at who he could possibly be. But we will, don't worry. We are wondering exactly where he's off to, and I think he's about to join another lion that we actually spotted that walked off into the distance. Now, there is a lot of buffalo in front of us that the lion was eyeing up a little bit earlier. So we're going to try and oh, no, there we go. He's appeared again. We are going to try and keep up with this boy and find out exactly where he's off to. But as I already mentioned, it is an extremely hot day here. The temperatures are very, very high. So it's most likely that the lion right now is probably trying to seek some shade. So we are going to try and get into a better position for you all. But for now, let's send you back down to South Africa to Rusty.
Oh, yeah. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rusty, and welcome to Safari Lives on this very warm afternoon here in Djuma. We are on the way to the Djuma clan. Whoa, sorry, it's a bit bumpy. So yes, we're going to go follow up on what the hyenas have been up to the last few days and catch up on today's activities, and then move on and then follow on with Scuba Steve and Snorkeling Sarah later this afternoon. See if their romance has blossomed onto anything else. It is quite warm, so I'm not expecting much activity. I don't want to be out at this time of the day, but it is a gorgeous day, so I suppose any bit of daylight we should actually be out there. Yeah. Okay. 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 We can head over to the Djuma clan clip and see what they've been up to. With a den full of youngsters, saying good morning isn't an easy affair. Being the lowest ranking member of the Djuma clan, June knows her cubs need all the help they can get and therefore makes sure they get every bit of her attention when returning to the den. But family remains family, and even those low-ranking cubs are schooled by their high-ranking aunt, pretty in correct high greeting display. June's smile is a clear indication of her submissive behavior. In our hyena world, where everything is decorated by a variety of odors, scent marking becomes second nature. Identifying who is part of a cub's schooling process. Well, I must admit, the hyenas definitely keep you busy. They entertain us every time when we're there. Even if they're not there, it's just we're always curious where they go. But the interaction between them is amazing, and they have got such an intricate family system. It's always amazing to follow them and see what their social system is. But we'll let you know in just a few minutes where and how they are getting along. I'm going to link you back to Jamie.
So while Rusty goes off in search of hyenas, I've broken the computer. Oh no, it's working again. No, stop playing. Okay, I was sort of trying to fix some tech issues there, but the gloves are coming off, largely because otherwise I don't have workable thumbs or fingers. Also, Josh's having the best time. Okay, wait, hold on. Task manager, okay, you can close. No, but this won't go away now. No, go away. Okay, wait, we'll start again. All right, we're getting a bit much of your, you're getting a sneak preview. Okay, stop. Okay. All right, as you know, every week, Chandra, as you know, every week what we do is we pick a theme for Safari Lives, and we will, no, it's working, let's not jinx it, and we pick a theme, and we pick a certain number of sightings that we've had that fits in with the theme, obviously connected to our characters. Now, as I said, and you may have noticed, very subtly I hinted at the theme in the beginning, and indeed that subtle hinting is carried on throughout our various segments. But our theme for the afternoon is flight or fight. There, I said it right this time. There is, of course, a third option as well, which is freeze. However, what we're going to start with is the absolute intrinsic example of the way in which this response, and it is a physiological subconscious response to stress that all animals in the wild have to face, and it's the body's way of essentially tackling that stress and being able to be ready to go into survival mode. It is essentially survival mode. Now, the best example that we have of this behavior is the great encounter between the evoker male and Corky. So we're going to now play that, and we're going to have a look. Look at the intent in this lion's eyes, easing his way forward. Now, you can be certain that this clip is frozen, or he's really, really good at stalking. He's really... Oh, wait, he's stalking again. There he goes. Oh, no, he stopped. No, he's frozen. Oh, yes, of course. FC's playing a different clip, so now you're not even seeing what I'm seeing. This is an absolute disaster. This is ridiculous. I can't do it with this lag and this frozen situation right here. Look, on my side, the evoker is currently stuck. Do you know what's going to happen? You know how we just spoke about the fight or the flight response? I'm leaving. I'm gone. I'm done for the afternoon. This is too much. I'm running away. While I run away, you can run all the way up to the Masai Mara, which is very far, and you'll be quite out of breath. And you can go and have a look at the lions with Lauren.
Well, we did catch up with that male, and it turns out he led us to 2 other males. And you know what? I cannot identify who they are because they all have their backsides to us, which is fabulous. Flat lions are not so easy to identify when they're not looking at you or standing up. So it is obviously a coalition of very large-looking males who are obviously very camera shy this morning, and you can see they've nestled themselves away here in the shade, and that's exactly where I anticipated he was going. It is so hot today. I cannot even begin to tell you. However, he's obviously came and joined 2 other males, so the fact that they are so relaxed... Oh, give him a little side view of your face, mister. Who are you? Looking very hot, panting there. That's obviously how lions get rid of excess heat, through panting. And the fact that these males are lying very relaxed in one another's company shows that they are familiar with each other, and they most likely are part of a coalition. Which coalition? I can't tell you right now, but we will, don't worry, because I'm really not planning on leaving these males at all. Now, we are in a tricky area in the middle of nowhere, actually quite close to the Tanzania border. So hopefully we don't run into any technical difficulties like Jamie did. Fingers crossed the gremlins stay away for us today, because once that sun starts going down and it gets a little bit cooler, there's a huge herd of buffalo behind us, and I'm very sure that these 3 male lions at some point will get hungry. Wouldn't that be a fantastic thing to see? So that is why indeed we're going to try and not go anywhere. So fingers crossed, with the help of all of you, using that hashtag SafariLive on Twitter or YouTube, we can identify these males. So while we stay here, we do have someone else who has yet to say hello. He's not too far away from me, so let's go across to Patricia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to SafariLive's episode 40. Seems like we're already off to a cracking start with some lions. I actually did find a male lion myself. It was the same one for anyone who watched the AM drive. The same lion, the same male, but he did the exact same thing and went very flat, and we just couldn't get a nice view of him. So I have moved off. My main priority tonight is finding the Owinos. The Owino Pride. I am in their territory. I'm a little bit further down from where we left them yesterday. So I'm just going to have a look over this side and then push further back near where they actually were yesterday to see if they were around there. So last I saw them, that was a failed buffalo hunt. 2 buffalo hunts in 2 days. And I thought that yesterday they might... Whoop. Whoa, big hole there. I thought they might have a better advantage yesterday because the first attempt they weren't with Butternut, one of the older females, but yesterday they were with her, and I thought that that might help them out, but unfortunately the buffalo were just too strong. I do think they'll need to single out a buffalo to take them down. It was a 2 buffalo versus 5 lion battle, and unfortunately for the lions, but fortunately for the buffalo got away again. They also did try to hunt a warthog as well, but again, no luck with that. So I'm hoping that my Owinos have had a feed in the last day, but if not, I'm hoping that they do it in the next couple of hours so we can see it. So it is a bit sad to see Butternut without cubs. So we did catch up with them when there was 3, then again when there was 1, and now none, but they may be stashed somewhere, we don't know. Anyway, another pride that we did catch up with last week is the large Olololo pride, and, well, there was a little bit of curiosity in one of the young males. The young subadult males of the Olololo pride are growing up fast and seemingly starting to get curious about their sexuality, as this young male was seen trying to mate with one of the lionesses in the pride. Although curious, the young subadult male will become sexually mature at around the age of 2 years, and will only mate when they have left their pride and taken over one of their own, and thus entitled to breeding rights. In the meantime, the young males will enjoy the benefits of the large Olololo pride and the scenic escarpment. Oh, they are growing up fast, aren't they, the young Olololos? I remember spending a bit of time with them last year when they were a little bit younger and a little bit less curious. But it is good to see such a large pride all staying together and staying healthy, and obviously doing a good job at feeding all of those mouths. They now have even more to feed, actually. They have had cubs relatively recently, as have the Owinos and the Sausage Tree Pride, 3 of our prides that we have down here, the ones we are most likely to see here as well. So that male I was with was a suspected El Doño Payak, but again, that long grass was just obscuring a proper identification. I did notice though, it was missing a bottom left incisor. Now a bottom left canine. And I haven't heard of any lions with that. I know that Fang is missing, I believe, an upper incisor. Canine, there I go again. I know that Fang's missing an upper canine, but this one was actually on the bottom. The way it was cracked off, it actually kind of made it look like a human tooth, like one of our molars. Alrighty, well, I'm going to start seriously searching for these Owinos, and whilst I do that, let's go and say hello to Tristan and get an update from him.
Kind of moving about, trying to see if we can find any sign of anything. We didn't pick up anything major in the Mulwati. There was tracks for a female leopard, but looked like from yesterday, potentially maybe from after we tracked Tandi and Kalamba. We followed their tracks pretty much to where I am right now, so it's not too far for them to, or for Tandi to have gone towards the Mulwati during the day yesterday, because remember we had those tracks yesterday morning, and so I wouldn't be surprised it's her track that's going south down the Mulwati. But I just want to check quickly at Gwari Pan in case Klalamba's gone there. If she's not there, then I'm going to loop back around and we're going to go check all the pans on the southern side, because the heat that we've had today, unless these leopards are on a meal, they're going to be probably in all likelihood trying to find some semblance of water and some semblance of shade. And so a lot of those south sort of eastern pans that we've got on the fringes of the Mulwati are perfect spots to find little Kalamba. And she's basically the cat that we're looking for, is even though we kind of outside hope of Hukamuri, it's probably not going to be the case, because he was seen this morning in the west, quite far inside Arathusa, and so I doubt that he would have walked in this heat towards this side of the world. And so I'm pretty sure that Kalamba is our best bet in terms of trying to find a spotty cat this afternoon. So we're going to scratch around in all the little areas that I know she likes to spend time. Of course, she might have been taken to a kill by Tandi. We know that the two of them walked together yesterday and kind of came in this direction. But the way the tracks were moving and the way that they were playing and things like that, it didn't really seem like they were going too fast. And so I don't think there was a kill. Also, the way that Tandi came, she didn't come towards her and then back the same way. She kind of came from the south and then picked her up and they carried on north. So I don't know if there is a kill, but we'll scratch around. Let's see what we can find. In the meantime, though, I think Rusty's probably doing much like I am and is bumbling about and trying to find something that is moving and has a heartbeat, which is proving to be quite difficult in this heat.
It's always as we appear, they seem to disappear. But yes, Scuba Steve and Snorkeling Sarah, they are getting more and more comfortable with each other. The pan they are in is drying up very, very quickly. Just in the last 2 weeks I've been here, it has dropped almost a foot or even more than that. So the space is getting a lot more comfortable with each other. I think the romance is definitely blossoming here. Whether we'll see something by the time next year comes and see if there's a new calf bobbing around. But who knows? They have been keeping us quite entertained in the last few weeks with a blossoming romance, if you want to call it that. We don't know what happens underwater, but if anyone wants an underwater camera, let us know. We could always meander closer in, but I don't think anyone wants to see that. It is cooling down. We just stopped off here first to see if these two were having any more activity than just bobbing up and down. And then we're going to move on to the hyena den later. Normally at the heat of the day like this, they would normally stick to the water, but sometimes they come out and lie on the banks and reveal themselves. But I don't think they've got to that part of the romance, that part of their relationship yet. They're very relaxed with each other. Okay. Let's see what they've been getting up to for the last week. The greatest love story ever told in the Sabi Sands never fails to disappoint. To some, it may seem like not much is taking place, but concealed below the surface of Bavelshoek Dam, a steamy affair is in progress. Raw passion, companionship, and true love were the order of the day for Scuba Steve and Snorkeling Sarah, who have no secrets from one another underwater. They seem to have two companions that always keep an eye on them. We should actually attach a GoPro to one of these geese and actually keep a live update of these two hippos, not to miss anything not to miss out on anything. See what they get up to when we are not here. These geese are always here, and I would love to pick their brains and sit down and share some grain with them and see if they can share some stories about these two. I don't think I've seen these two move out the water or even get more of their body out the water since I met them a few weeks ago. But yeah. They don't seem to be too interested in us. I think they're still floating underwater, so we'll leave them with that. And then I'm going to head back over to Jamie with Fight or Flight.
I'm just kidding. I would never run away from all of you. I might have thought about it, but I've never actually done it before. So let's try that all again. Okay, everybody ready? We're going to do this, and nothing's going to stop working. It's going to work beautifully. I believe in you. John Ray said some very disparaging things about this computer, but we're going to make it work, okay? Right, let's try that again. Corky and the Avoca male. Let's go. Whoops. Okay, now he's stalking. He's really stalking. Making his way through the thicket. And now look at the intent in this lion's eyes. Completely focused like he was stalking prey. Moving from a slow walk now to any second, that little burst of speed. Timing his moment absolutely perfectly, watching, waiting, and here he goes again. And right here, if we stop now. Okay, so we've stopped right here. Corky's realized that something very large is coming her way, something that she cannot fight, something that she needs to run away from. Now here's what's happened in Corky's body at this exact moment. All digestive processes have stopped, and what's happening is a completely subconscious physiological reaction to this incredible fright, and it's set off in the brain, and it follows the nerve pathways, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve pathways, and everything in her body goes into what's known as fight or flight mode. So her blood flow is all redirected into her muscles, making her much stronger, much faster. Her blood pressure goes up. All her what do you call those things, that run through your body? Blood vessels. They all constrict to increase her blood pressure, making sure that that blood is getting to where it needs to go as quickly as possible. Her heart is going much, much faster, incredibly fast. Her breathing is very, very quick. Her pupils have dilated. She might even actually have urinated slightly, because that's the effect that this sort of fright has on the body. Now, most of you have experienced this in one way or another. Whether it's you just missed a stair on your way down some stairs, there was an extra stair that you didn't realize, that feeling of falling, or perhaps someone's leapt out from behind the wall and given you a little bit of a fright, that feeling of your stomach dropping. All of that is a part of the fight or flight response, and it's your biological mechanism as a way of surviving it. And what happens next is purely based on circumstances. But what will happen with Corky, or what happened with Corky in this moment, is she became tunnel visioned. She became purely focused on survival. There's almost zero cognitive response in what she did next. So here we go. We're going to go on to what happened next. Lion's moving in. She ran into a tree and he's got her. Now in this moment, Corky has no choice but to fight back. How she survived this, none of us know. And that is where the pure flight or fight response actually saved her life. As soon as he caught her, she had no choice but to fight back, using her jaws, using her strength, using her relatively weak, relatively loose skin to twist around and bite the Avoca male. Now that she's escaped, he, of course, is going off for a free meal. which brings us to the reason as to why animals go into fight or flight response and what exactly it means for them. So there really is a way in which they respond, and it connects to several different primal urges. One, animals fight for territory, animals fight for food. Animals fight for survival if something else is attacking them. But the reason that something else is attacking them is because, of course, that animal in turn is looking to reduce a competition. Lisa says that poor Corky, or comments, poor Corky, and that thank goodness she recovered. She did, with very minimal injury. That's another thing her body did. Immediately, when presented with that, her blood clotting biochemistry went into overdrive, ready to clot in the face of injury. Isn't that absolutely incredible? That the body is prepared almost before it's happened for serious injury or for some serious bleeding. So her body was immediately ready for that. He broke the skin. Obviously, as you know, he injured her shoulder. But really, relatively, she must have been very sore, but she escaped relatively unscathed. Now, we're talking about why animals fight and why they go into flight mode. But let's start with a discussion about Tlalamba. At a very tiny, or Hasana, at a very, very small age, they freeze. They freeze and they hide, or they run away. And as they grow older, they have to learn what they can fight and what they must flee from. And of course, one of the big animals that almost all other predators have to flee from is lions, just like the ones with Lauren.
Oh, I do remember that Avoca male attack on Corky. Will never forget how I felt watching that whole thing unfold from Final Control. My heart was in my mouth, to say the least. And of course, they have 3 male lions here, not too unlike the avocados down in South Africa. And I do obviously hope we do have little Nkahuma avocado chips running around soon. Well, let's see. Fingers crossed. Now, unfortunately, we haven't been able to get a better look at these lions for you. And I'm going to show you how before Bongay goes back to the lions. If you take a look at this long grass, there is huge boulders in them. Let's see if Bongay can get you a good close-up of these boulders. There we go. So this is what we face if we drive into the long grass. And it's probably not the best idea because we could end up with a flat tire or in a very tricky position surrounded by these 3 boys. So I just wanted to sort of clarify why we haven't gotten into a better position. And of course, these 3 sleepy boys haven't moved at all. And we actually just had a discussion. Oh, hello. Hi. Oh, very sleepy. We actually just had a discussion on the vehicle at if we think they're going to move at all during the show. And Bungay thinks they're going to move at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. That is his guess. So, as I speak, right on cue. Now give us a good look at your face, boy. Look at that. Oh, okay. Just repositioned to a view completely out of our sight. But I think it's worth the wait. I'm going to have the patience today and try and stay with them, at least to try and figure out exactly who they are and who they are up to. So even although we don't know anything about these boys yet, we had a fantastic week with the North Clan. As you all know, I am a huge fan of hyenas, and we're getting to know them better and better each day, even those new little cubs. So let's take a look at exactly what they got up to this week. There is never a dull moment at the North Clan Den. The little cubs spent their morning running around trying to find something to amuse themselves with. A stick was the choice of the day. The adults rested nearby, keeping a watchful eye. At this age, the cubs love to engage in play, having fun whilst learning and developing essential skills for becoming an adult. Indulging in a wrestling match, The cubs are constantly striving for dominance over one another. Aren't those cubs just adorable? It's such a nightmare trying to keep up with them at the den. They go round and round and round like a merry-go-round, and it's really difficult to actually try and get the IDs of those cubs. But not too unlike lion cubs, when they're young, play is a huge thing for cubs. For fun, they're having fun. But they're also developing muscles, they're also learning coordination, they're also learning hunting skills. So it's a huge thing for cubs. But in hyenas, there's always that strive for dominance between siblings. There's always one trying to get the better of the other. So let's go back and see if we can get a better look at our lions. Murray's saying something at an incredibly fast rate in my ear, so I have no idea what he said, but it is to do with Crystal and the North Clan, and yes, I am going to try and get my teeth right into the North Clan. I'm getting there. I'll share all the information with you, of course, and IDs are really important, so there is a lot to learn and there's a lot to sort of dive into, but we will get there. We will do a special Safari Live just on the North Clan for you all to try and dig a little deeper into who is who. So I'm getting there with the North Clan, but I just have no idea who these boys are in front of me, and it's really frustrating. If we were able to sort of do a turn and go to the other side, we would get a much better look at their faces. But that's a tricky situation because it involves taking the car over a lot of dangerous boulders, which I'm sure Bungai will not be happy with me doing. So it's a bit tricky, which is why I believe in patience, I believe in sticking it out, and hopefully they will get up and we'll get a much better look at them. They can't be 3 unknown males. We must know them on some level. So once we get some ID features or something, hopefully we will exactly be able to identify them. But unfortunately for now, the most they're doing is swatting the flies with their tail. But they do look rather on the skinny side, especially the one in the middle here. Normally when a lion is lying down, and you can sort of see all those ribs and hip joints coming out, then you can obviously sort of work out whether it's had a meal or not. Lions do tend to be very full and very fat, as we know, once they've had a meal. So I don't believe they've had anything to eat today. So tonight could be the night. And for me, seeing a coalition of males actually hunting would be absolutely astounding. Now, I've seen prides work together, even the Owinos recently with Pat. They really coordinate themselves and they really do hunt together. Males can be involved in that, but these boys can actually also hunt alone as well. And that is something I would really want to see. So I'm just going to have a little look. Oh, yep. The buffaloes are still there, completely unaware of us and our lions here. Now, the grass being this long as it is, it would be absolutely perfect stalking grass. So the lions really could get away at sneaking up on buffalo. So for now, we are not going anywhere, but you are, and we're going to send you down to South Africa to Tristan.
Well, as you can see, we found basically what we were hoping to find up where I was looking. I was saying we're going to go check water points, and we managed to come across pretty much what we wanted to see. And you can see there in the sand are the tracks for what looks like Tundi and Kalamba. Both of them look like they've been walking around here. There's also tracks for Tingana that's in the area too. So they're all close to where Tingana was yesterday with Deirdre. And so nice to kind of see that there is signs. Now, unfortunately, these tracks, they're not the freshest tracks though. So these are not tracks that are ones that have happened during the course of the day or even, in fact, this afternoon. These are tracks probably in all likelihood from last night. There's a little bit of wind damage to them and a few vehicles that have driven over them, but they do look like they cross into Torchwood. So what I want to do is just do a loop onto Torchwood, see what's going on there, and then I'm going to come back towards Guaripan. And the reason why I want to come back towards Guaripan is because, well, we know Kalamba loves Guaripan. She loves to spend a lot of time in that area, and so we're going to just kind of go in and do a big loop round, and then we're going to come back towards the water point and see if maybe she's going to kind of emerge. She might actually be lying very close to there, but because of the fact that it is incredibly hot, she's just tucked up in the shade, and she'll come out when it starts to cool down a little bit later. But at least encouraging signs that we've seen them. Now, it's nice that the fact that sort of Thandi and Tlalamba are together, but of course, as time marches on, little Tlalamba is going to start growing up.
Leopard cubs grow up so quickly. With Tlalamba's cub-like features fading, she will be a fully fledged mature female leopard before we know it. The Princess of Djuma is starting to display more of the traits it will take for her to make it as a territorial female, and another successful member of this incredible royal family.
Isn't she just the cutest little leopard? And it's so nice to see how much she's starting to develop, and how she's starting to grow and develop into her own kind of cat, and the way that she likes to move around. And she's at the best age now in terms of actually tracking and finding her, because she's still at that age where she kind of hangs around for mom, even though that bond seems to slowly be eroding away. Of course, as she gets older, so Thandi is going to leave her for longer and longer periods. But she's at that age where she'll sit in one spot for quite some time, and she likes particularly water points or any sort of point where there's height. So it makes it much easier to find her, because she's often on mounds and up in trees. And so finding little Tlalamba of late has been a lot easier than it was 6 months ago when Thandi was hiding her so well. Right, we're going to head off down this road. This is a kind of road that both of them often use. And we're going to just check if any tracks come out. And in the meantime, though, we're going to send you back across to Jamie as she continues to discuss all the animals and their fight or flight modes.
Sneaky suspicion that Tristan is going to find at least one of those two female leopards. But what he's done is he's led beautifully into what I was going to tell you about Tlalamba. Because she is at that critical point in her life where she's having to learn that not just flight is necessary for her survival, she's going to have to fight in the future as well. Now, hopefully, she sticks around in the center of Djuma, and Thandi survives to the point where Tlalamba can really, truly establish herself as a dominant female leopard in this area. But she's still very, very young, and she's not quite ready for that level of, I'm going to call it responsibility. Responsibility is probably the wrong word, but certainly for that reality that she's going to have to face. At some point, she is going to have to fight to defend her territory, because to the west of her, of course, is Shudulu. To the south of her is her big sister, Kuchaba, and of course to the east is Mom as well. Now, with leopards, when it comes to confrontation with each other, moms and daughters, and sometimes sisters as well, can be it's more about display more than anything else. A lot of growling, as we know from Karula and Shadow, a lot of blowing of spit bubbles, but avoidance of fighting if they can. Now, Lily, who is 8 years old, wants to know, why does the body freeze when it should run away? Lily, that's a really difficult question to answer, because a lot of the time running away isn't the right option, especially for a lot of the animals out here, especially because it attracts the attention of predators. So what you must remember is that when a body is reacting to a big fright, something really, really scary, there's actually nothing happening within your brain. So remember what I said about all of the blood going to your muscles, all of the blood focusing into different areas of your body, and your heart beating really, really fast. So you're not actually thinking about how you're going to respond to something. Your body just does what it thinks is best at that exact moment. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with freezing because you're a little bit scared. It just means that your body is going through something biological. In other words, it's not something that you have any control over. And a lot of the time, running away can actually make things worse. Sometimes you have to stay and face whatever it is, for whatever reason. And sometimes running away, of course, can attract attention as well. Now, it really just depends on the situation, but it doesn't mean that you are in any way to blame if you can't run away from something that feels dangerous. It's just a matter of your body responding and telling what to do. So for Tlalamba, what she's learning now, and remember that Lily, you're still quite young. As you grow older, you'll experience more of life, and the more you learn, the more you know how to respond to something. So, for example, let's say as a human being, I am walking out in the bush and I see a lion and I get a really big fright. Now, I could run away, but that would get me into really big trouble, and I know that because I've spent a lot of time learning about the animals. So I know that, and I don't run away, and I stay still and I freeze. And that's actually the best approach, because then the lion doesn't see me running away. So remember, we're just like animals in that respect. Now, Heather Lily wants to know, why do certain predators attack over kills or steal kills, but not attack the predator that they're stealing kills from? It's really a matter of which predator you're talking about. Remember, there is a predator hierarchy. It's not set in stone, as we're going to talk about a little bit later with hyenas and lions. But where a male lion is concerned, there is nothing out here that he cannot tackle. Now, remember, the Avoca males are built up and full of testosterone at the moment. They've moved into an area, they're on edge all the time, and they're actually constantly going through a stress response at the moment, which does actually affect the balance of their other hormones like testosterone. So they are hyper aggressive right now while they're going through this transition, which is why lionesses, when they first have cubs with new males, are very, very defensive over the cubs, and that's why we saw the Nkuhumas fighting with the Birminghams as much as we did in 2016. But a leopard doesn't want to risk injury tackling a hyena, so while something like Tingana or a leopard like Tingana might be able to fight with one single lone hyena, he doesn't want to, because one crushing injury could be the end of his life. If that hyena gets its mouth around or jaws around his foot, the hyena is thinking the same thing. Remember that nothing out here really wants to fight unless they know that they can know with absolute certainty that they can win. A male lion knows that. There's nothing else out here that actually knows that with absolute certainty. So those fights are quite rare. We've seen when presented with lions, everything runs away. Leopards run away, they go up trees. All the time. We've seen it with Tingana, straight up a tree and out of harm's way. Same with a leopard and a pack of wild dogs. So Tingana wouldn't tackle something unless, he really thought he could win. There is a caveat to that. Over food, no. Over territory, maybe. So serious fights do happen between members of the same species and the same sex when they're fighting over territory. And that's something else that we're going to talk about. But learning that process of going from a cub, a baby, that either runs away or freezes and stays in exactly the same place, to knowing which animals can be tackled, can be fought with, and what a good motivation for that. That's a learning process that obviously comes with instinct as the animal grows older, but also requires a little bit of a learning process as well. And sometimes it's not that easy for an animal to decide between whether or not it is going to fight or it is going to run away. So it's actually quite a complex issue. At its base level, it's a physiological response. Further than that, it is to do with a learning and instinctive process. Rosalind wants to know if lions can be intimidated if you stare them straight in the eye. Lions are generally intimidated by people, and I assume that you're talking about on foot. Lions are generally intimidated by Jean-René. Nearly hit his head on the light, but he managed to duck very nimbly underneath it. It was hilarious. Yes, lions can be intimidated by standing your ground, and most people will say that you must maintain eye contact with them. I think as long as you're standing your ground, and remember they are looking at your eyes, all animals are programmed for physical features, so you could betray fear by dropping that eye contact because they know that you've seen them. So yes, if you can, and I actually have to tell you something, if you're ever in the position where you're facing down a lion, you won't be able to look away from their eyes. Promise you that. Your peripheral vision's working all the time to pick up on where the others are, but when you're faced with a lion one-on-one, you will not be able to look away from their eyes if you know that you have to stand their ground, or your ground. You don't look down. There's nothing on this planet that can drag your eyes away from theirs. It's a very different thing with a leopard, where often you've got to pretend that you haven't seen them if you come close to them on foot, if they're not relaxed around people. But yes, you can. And again, that becomes a conscious decision to override your instinct. Although, again, I find that freezing tends to be the natural body response. But you've always got to watch out, especially if you're leading a walk with people with you. Always got to watch out for that one person who just has to run, and they can't actually overcome that instinct. And that's, of course, where it becomes potentially quite dangerous. Fortunately, that's not a scenario that we've ever had to tackle out here, and I'm pretty certain, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I'm pretty certain Lauren's not going to run anywhere.
Well, we didn't stand still. We didn't move. However, it's not really worked much in our favour because of these ridiculous rocks in the grass. So I do apologise about that. I am genuinely trying really hard to get a better view of these boys. I'm not sure what I should do. Should I stay or should I go? Why don't you guys tell me what I should do? Should I wait it out and try and find out who they are and what they're going to be getting up to? Or should I go and bumble around? Preferably not in this grass that is covered in rocks. Let me know what you would like me to do, and I of course will follow your wishes. Now, Jamie's topic today of fight and flight is actually one of my favourite topics because it boils down to animal interaction, which is something I regularly refer to on drives. Now, I love to watch interactions between the same species and different species, and I regularly talk about situations like this. I remember just last week we had a Mugoro lioness with a topi, I think, if I remember correctly, and I was talking about hyenas possibly coming along, and it's not in any negative way because it all depends on the situation. Now, a lioness will react very differently to one hyena than she will to 4 hyenas, so it really all depends on the situation. And the other day, Pat had an incredible sighting with Busara and Waffle's son, Turani, and they had a very, very relaxed and quite endearing sighting, actually, and that just showed that both of them were very complacent with one another, and there was absolutely no aggression. None of them felt the need to really fight or flee. So animal interaction and behaviour is just one of my favourite things to talk about. So Jamie has really chosen an ideal topic today. So boys, are you going to do anything other than lounge in this lovely shady spot in one of the most awkward places of the reserve? Most likely they are. But you know me, I would feel very incomplete if I wasn't to sort of get an ID on exactly who they are. Okay, people are stay. Vicky, Laura, perfect. I feel like I should stay just a little bit longer. I know flat lions are not the most interesting things to look at, especially the way these boys are sprawled out. But so some people are saying 50-50 as well. Yes, I'm a bit 50-50, but I really do want to see what they're going to do. And to be honest, we are actually starting to get a cool breeze come through, and I feel it's getting marginally cooler. That could just be in my head, but I do feel it is starting to get just that little bit cooler, which is always a sign that the lions could start to move, which is exactly what we want. Oh, Paula's saying go and bumble around and come back. Well, Paula, unfortunately that won't be possible. It will be stay and go because of where we are. We're right at the border. We're about an hour away from our camp. And let me tell you, it really wasn't easy getting into this location, but we did hear there was male lions and we really did want to check them out. So, while I make my decision what to stay or whether to go, and I will make one soon, I promise, I am going to send you back down to Miss Patterson in her tent.
It's very much a 50-50 there. I mean, those lions are clearly either going to fight or they're going to run away. It's very hard to make flight into a suitable verb, isn't it? They're going to fight or they're going to flight. That doesn't make any sense at all. Those lions are certainly not going to do anything anytime soon by the looks of it, but then again, one never really knows. Sometimes, for example, we see something that we think is a good bet out in the wilds of Africa, and we spend a vast amount of time with that animal, or in that position that we're in, waiting to see whether or not something happens. Now, a fair percentage of the time, nothing happens. And that's how it goes when it comes to wildlife. But when something does happen, it is truly extraordinary, which fits in quite nicely to the 16-hour day that faced both Tristan and myself when we had an encounter between the Winnow Pride and a clan of hyenas. So here we go. Now, this was an encounter last year with, as it happened, the Happy Zebra clan, which is a bit embarrassing, but entirely my fault. Well, they had a buffalo kill. Now, we talk about when is a good time to fight for animals and when is a good time to run away. Now, in this particular instance, the Winnows had been hungry for days and days, and they finally had a buffalo all to themselves. And they really didn't want to face down a team of hyenas. Now, watch the caution in the approach of these hyenas. They don't know one very critical fact, and that's whether or not there was a male here. When they figured out there was a male, it turned into an absolute brawl. The sound effects were extraordinary. The sighting was absolutely extraordinary. But a really good example of an animal going from fight to flight in the space of just a few seconds. So in that case, the lionesses tried to fight, but they realized very quickly that they were faced with truly unfortunate odds. There were just far too many hyena from the Happy Zebra clan. And I'm sorry, that was my fault. I should have caught that error from the beginning. But it was, in fact, the Happy Zebra clan. What that clip doesn't show you, and what I experienced while I was there, was this fascinating ability to overrule that instinct. So the lions ran away. At one point, one of the lions, and I can't demonstrate it because it's very difficult without a hyena snapping at me, but one of them was running and hopping and tucking its bottom under its head, because the hyena was biting at its rear end. So it was snapping and the lion was going hop, hop, hop. It's very hard to demonstrate, but you get the idea. Chandra is trying to hint that perhaps I should get up and do it, but it doesn't work when you're not on four legs, and I'm certainly not trying to do that. Alcinek said, what a massacre. Fortunately, it wasn't a massacre, but what happened was the Owino Pride overruled their instinct and came back to try and tackle the hyenas for that buffalo kill. Now, during the migration time in Kenya, that would never, ever, ever happen, because there is just such an abundance of food that there's no reason to risk life or limb in order to actually secure a meal. I mean, there's dead wildebeest at every corner. You just go and eat a wildebeest over there, go and eat a wildebeest over there. Everything's totally full and basically killing for fun. Amanandres says that the Owinos are simply too small a group. Yes, and critically, there was no adult male with them. It takes a very, very brave hyena clan and a massive amount of them to tackle a pride with a hungry male lion in it. Now, I don't know if any of you remember, but from just before that sighting, we saw what happened when the Happy Zebra clan got too brave with the sausages, and they didn't realize that Kupuli was hiding in the bushes, and Kupuli came barreling out and actually managed to catch one of the hyenas, and it did the most impressive backward somersault that I have ever seen. I mean, I like to watch the Olympic gymnastics, and I've never seen a somersault quite as disturbing as that hyena managed. So there is a link between how hungry the animals are, and of course, from the hyena's side, whether or not there's that threat. And we keep coming back to this. We've spoken about it with Corky. We've spoken about it in the answer to Heather's question about why it is that certain predators kill. Male lions are an intimidating force, no matter what other animal or what other predator you're talking about. Only thing that a male lion really runs from, or the only things that a male lion really runs from, elephants, other male lions, and people. I can't think of anything else that a male lion... I've seen them get a fright. It's not the same as running away. Wing Fu wants to know if male lions will only fight when they are hungry. No, definitely not. So we spoke about the fact that fighting often happens over food. It will also happen over territorial space. A male lion has a very brief period in their life where they are truly, truly in their prime, where they are big enough to actually defend a territory from other male lions, where they are old enough to sire offspring before they actually get too old and they're booted out by the next generation of young male lions. So they are fiercely defensive over that right, and they definitely, out of all the predators, the male territorial fights are often some of the most serious that I've ever seen. Now, males in a coalition might fight as well. They might fight over food, they might also fight over mating rights, particularly in the beginning, where they've just secured a territory and all of a sudden they have all these ladies available to them, and they don't quite realize that those opportunities will come around and around and around again. So they fight a little bit over that, or where females haven't been in estrus for a while. But once they settle in, then they realize that the potential's there. But in terms of fights between dominant territorial male lions, they can often be completely, what's the word I was going to say? They are often nearly fatal, if not fatal. Okay, let us go and find out how Rusty is doing on this very warm, very sweaty afternoon. Perhaps he's found something to tell you about.
Welcome back. The fight or flight. It's always an interesting case, and I'm sure Jamie's giving you the details of all of that. It's you never know what a human's instinct is going to be in that situation. Everyone is slightly different. When it comes to animals, that's also very different. We left Snorkeling Steve and what do you call them? Steve and Sarah. We left them in the pond. Let them carry on with what they're doing. We are still on the way to see if the hyenas are active at the den or not. It's still quite a warm day, so I doubt it. If they're not at the den site, they might be lounging in the background pool. But it was actually surprising when we saw we were at the pan with the hippos. It was actually the first time I saw Tingana, and he was mating with the buffershook female, and that was my first sighting of him. He is an incredible man, eh? That leopard is massive. He's definitely getting on in a few years. You can see this huge dewlap that's hanging from his chin. He is definitely very impressive, and I can see why everyone gets so attached to him. He definitely is controlling quite a big territory, or he is losing it slowly but surely. But he is very impressive. Well, it's not exactly it is a very clear day here, but we will send you over and see what he's been up to the last week.
Like any other cat, Tingana does enjoy grooming and cleaning himself while still remaining alert. A wet cat is never a happy cat, and with the rain falling in abundance, Tingana sought shelter in the nearby bushes. While waiting on the rain to subside, a bit of grass helps to settle the stomach. The rain eventually passed, and Tingana got back to St. Martin's territory.
Well, yeah, the rain's finally cleared a few days ago. We are hoping for more rain to come in, but Tingana, I'm sure, like most cats, did not like that rain. But as I predicted, the hyena den is not active, and we checked the pool behind and saw nothing there. But it is very warm, so I am not surprised. They're probably parked up in the shade where most of the animals should be at this time of day. Yeah. So, well, we can just do another round around here and see if any of them pop out. As soon as one of the adults pops up, I'm sure one of the cubs will too. It seems to be a quick interaction with all that. Yeah. But it is cooling down, so we might have some luck. I'm just going to go check one more watering hole and see if it pops out there. We did see some tracks of a female leopard in the area, so we will follow up on that and see if that works. The den is still active. There's still a lot of tracks around here, so they will be back here later on this evening. I have no doubt about that. Okay. Oh, while we're searching for the side for the hyenas and see if we can follow up on that leopard track, we'll send you back over to Pat in the Mara.
Yes, I am still searching, so no signs of the Owinos yet. And I just remembered, actually, I did forget to do the proper introduction this afternoon. So my name is Patrick and James is on camera, and please do interact with us using that hashtag SafariLive. So it's a bit tricky looking for the Owinos at the moment because it has been a very hot day. The sun has been absolutely cooking, and thus everything is quite flat at the moment. Even some of the giraffe I drove past on the way out here were down on all fours. Well, I mean, they're always on all fours, but you know, they were actually laying down. So yeah, everything is quite flat and quite drained, and so it kind of does help a little bit in that it narrows down the search. We can look in the shade for lions when it is like this, but if there's anything I have learned from being with the Owino Pride, it's that they do not follow typical lion hunting patterns. They tend to hunt more actually during the day. The last few hunts I've seen have all been between the hours of 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock, 11 o'clock AM and 4 o'clock PM, which are the hottest hours of the day out here, and the sun really has some crunch to it, but still the Owinos have been out and hunting. So I am hoping to see them on the move, but having said that, I am also expecting them to be flat. So I am also heading back in the direction of that male lion. Hopefully he has gotten up and moved a little bit and will give us a better look at him, and hopefully we can get an identification. And it's also got me a little bit worried. Maybe that's why we can't see the Owinos right now. So yeah, I'm not sure what influence this male has had. It seems like he's only just moved in today, but then again, that's only from what I have seen. Well, I am not the only one searching it right now, so is Tristan. Let's go and catch up with him.
Well, we have been searching for little Tlalamba, but we found something much larger than her, that's for sure. This is a big, big elephant bull who smells terribly at the moment. He's in full must, and you can smell him. He's hugely pungent, and it's actually how we found him first, is we kind of smelling him as he's going, and we've been trying to loop around and kind of get views of him, but he's on such a mission to move, and so we're trying to kind of keep going round and round and round, trying to get to where he is. And so I don't really know if we're going to be able to catch up with him again. I think actually said if we turn, there's another road on the other side here that we can catch up with him. But he's a beautiful, beautiful big boy, and like I say, he's in that heightened level of testosterone at the moment, which means he's dribbling a lot of urine, and there's this really pungent smell that is kind of taking place, and that will one, tell other big bull elephants that he's around. Two, it will be when females smell him, they'll kind of, if they're in heat, potentially slow down a little bit, and he'll be able to mate with them. Now apparently our signal is not working very well at all, so I have to stop, otherwise we're going to lose all of you, which is not ideal at all. I was hoping we would be able to get round and get another view of him, because otherwise it's been quite quiet. We haven't found a single track for Tani or Tlalamba on Tortured side, so it means that they're still hanging around somewhere close to Guaripan, so we're going to head back there just now. We're just waiting for it to just cool down a little bit. It's starting to get there. There's a little bit of cloud cover way in the sort of western side that's going to block the sun shortly, and that should then hopefully make it a little bit cooler, and a little breeze that's going to blow, and we should start to see the likes of some of the animals moving around and kind of doing something. Now, we did get an update that there is one of the Avoca boys and a lioness up on Biffel's Hook, so I wonder if it's Amber Eyes, because earlier this week we managed to see, well, Amber Eyes and one of the Avocas that were engaged in, well, a little bit of play.
Amber Eyes made sure her female charm was turned on as she lured one of the Avoca males into mating. Bouts of mating are short and full of explosive energy. While these encounters seem aggressive, the pair still have the time to bond between these sessions. The bond between Nkuhumas and Avocas is slowly being reinforced as the two look to continue the pride's legacy under these new males.
Well, as you can see, it was quite a kind of frequent affair when it came to mating between the two of them, and hopefully it will be the next generation will come through. Amber Eyes, as we know, has really struggled when it's come to raising any sort of offspring. She's mated quite a lot and has had quite a few cubs now, but she's just unfortunately really battled to keep them safe. And so hopefully with these younger Avoca males coming in, this is going to be a really good sign and a good time for her to kind of settle down a little bit and be able to have these cubs and have the protection of these younger males and make sure that she does a little bit better. But, you know, it's going to be interesting to see. It's also, I'm sure, why we're seeing such a big split in the Nkuhumas at the moment with, you know, members being spread all over the place. I'm sure these Avoca males are kind of getting in amongst the pride, the sub-adults and the various other sort of parts, and females that are not in estrus. Well, they will be having a tough time trying to kind of cope with these boys constantly following Amber Eyes around. So it will be very interesting to see how we go. Now, the next road is quite far for this elephant to pop out. So we're just going to head a little bit further south. Now, the lioness that's with those Avocas on Buffalo's Hook, I'm not sure who it is. The guys think it might be Amber Eyes, so she might still be mating with the Avocas as we speak. Sorry, Seb, that was a bit bouncy. A lot more bouncy than I thought it would be. Anyway, we're going to try catch up with this Ellie, see if he'll slow down a little bit. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Jamie, who's looking at the spotty cats and their fight or flight responses.
Well, good luck to Tristan catching up with the elephant bull in must, and all I can say is that I hope that that elephant bull in must decides to be appreciative of Tristan's company and let him actually stop and have a moment to view him, because of course when they're in must they often have other things on their mind. Right, we only have one thing on our mind really, or two, and that is flight or fight. And indeed, I come to the realization that when you're trying to make flight into a verb, it means flee. So an animal either chooses to flight. How hard this is to say. When you say it repeatedly, it gets really, really tricky. Just pretend you know what I'm talking about, and let's move on from conflict between different species of predators to conflict between two of the same types of animals, and indeed something that happens within families, although it is deeply tragic. There are often moments where one of the youngest siblings... Sorry about the letter T. One of the youngest siblings finally chooses to stand up to an older one, which is, of course, what happened with Tundi and her brother, Hosanna. Now, remember that as Hosanna is making this approach towards Tundi, and he's trying to get past, and she tackled him, she bowled him over. The sound effect's truly extraordinary, but it occurs to me I've just spoken over them. Sorry about that. I'll play it again for you afterwards if you want. Now, he was after her kill, but remember that through this whole process, this would actually have been quite scary for young Hosanna. It was one of the first times that he properly tackled a member of his own species, and it's all part of the learning experience that he had to go through. There he goes off with his prize. Tundi, of course, a fearsome hunter, often catching large impala, despite her size, and Hosanna wandering off with it. You see how there's a slightly anxious look to his behavior there. He's panting. Now, although it's not necessarily... Poor Tundi. She really had no choice but to, you know, that word, flee away from him. Sniffing around, looking thoroughly sorry for herself. Now, remember that although this might not necessarily have gone immediately into fight or flight, or in fact perhaps had gone into a situation where, as she tackled him, the physiological responses started to kick in, but they still would have both been experiencing the anxiety of the build-up of that situation. So the fast breathing, and that would have taken a while to calm down afterwards. But really, we're not terribly interested in that aspect of it. Why we wanted to show this to you is to demonstrate Hosana's growth. Now, a lot of you, of course, have watched Hosana grow up, and you've seen how he's gone from, remember when I very, very first saw him, if you take your mind back to the beginning of 2016, when I very first saw Hosana and Shongile. They were tiny, shy, terrified little 2-month-old cubs, and they crept around on their bellies, and they hid away. I used to be able to speak English, but I'm really struggling today. I'm really sorry. When they used to hide away or freeze whenever they encountered a potential predator. Now, Shongile, of course, very sadly didn't make it, probably largely thanks to the fight that she had with Thandi that she was completely ill-prepared for. But Hosana, being male and being less of a threat to Thandi, managed to get away with being around her. Then she stole from him, she stole from him, he fled from her, he fled from her, until one day he just didn't. And there was that switch in his mind. Fortunately, we were there, if not for the first time it happened, certainly for one of the first times that it happened, and he realized all of a sudden, I'm bigger than her. And actually, I'm not afraid of her. Now, how much of that was instinct and how much of that was a learning experience, we don't know. I suspect him being male and with his hormones starting to kick in and his growth spurt, I suspect that it was mostly instinct. He suddenly realized, I can do this and I'm going to survive. And I have to tell you, I have never admired Hosana's bravery more than I did in that moment, because we all know how utterly terrifying Thandi can be. And you know what else is utterly terrifying? Is all I can hear in this, the top of the tent is I think it's a skink. Not a snake this time. We did have a snake actually in here earlier. I forgot about it. It was a brown house snake. Well, it's not a snake because it sounded like claws, so it's probably a skink. One of the striped skinks. It's probably a skink. Don't know. One day it's not going to be a skink, but, you know, there's quite a large number of us at the moment moving through this tent area, so hopefully the odds are slightly less that it's going to be me that has to deal with it. It's going to be me that has to deal with it. And there you go. Fight, flight, or freeze. When confronted with a snake, most people instinctively do what is the correct response, as it turns out. They freeze. And they stay very, very still. Some, of course, scream, wave their arms around and run away, which, of course, is not the correct response. But, you know, some things just cannot be helped. Unfortunately, or fortunately, my ramblings can be helped. They can ultimately be stopped. But the only way that we can do that is actually to send you across to Lauren again.
So our boys really haven't moved much at all. So I've decided to move. I've decided to put myself in a different position because at least somebody's moving, and I'm sitting on the front of the car now, and at least it gives me a bit of a height advantage. And the button just popped off my trousers as well. I don't quite know how that happened. So at least there's been some movement somewhere, but indeed not with our lion. So we are still wondering if it is worth the stay, and they're just looking rather comfortable. So in a coalition of lions, it's very interesting dynamics. Talking about sort of dynamics and animal behavior and interactions. Well, there is actually no dominant male within a coalition. There can actually be a stronger one that just is generally more stronger or bigger or fitter, if you like, but there isn't actually a dominant one. And when it comes to mating or a female and estrus, the interesting thing is that they will take turns. They won't actually fight with one another for the female and estrus. They will actually take turns. So you may see one male mating with the same female, for example, Amber Eyes, one day, and then another male the next, and then another male. They won't actually fight within a coalition over it. If another male came in that wasn't part of that coalition, then of course that is exactly when they may start fighting. But with this group here, there is actually no dominant male. So they could all be related. They could be brothers or they could be strangers, and that is actually how it works within a coalition. So if they are, of course, litter mates and they grew up within the same pride, brothers, they may form a coalition together. It's very likely. And of course, they may accept strangers as well. It actually benefits a male to be together with others. So, of course, maybe related, maybe not. And that is a tricky thing to sort of tell unless you know their history and they know where they came from. Whereas with cheetahs, it's a completely different story. Generally, cheetah male coalitions, they do tend to be brothers. So there is obviously evidence of them accepting strangers as well, but they do tend to be brothers, and there tends to be a leader, if not a sort of a group of leaders and co-leaders. So cheetahs and lions are actually very different in the way that they do form male coalitions. And as many of you know, we have had a wonderful week with a female cheetah who is solitary, of course, and her name is Busara, and it's been absolutely fantastic spending time with her. She had a tough week, so let's go and see exactly what happened. Busara's history goes way back, so her recent visit into the triangle was welcomed with open arms. Alert, she scanned the horizon for prey. However, it was not without snitchers, as the crowned crane's alarm call to alert everyone of her presence. She was hungry, and no amount of disruption was going to deter her from her mission. Quietly, gracefully, skillfully, she stalked her prey. A lucky Thompson's gazelle managed to escape the jaws of death, leaving Busara hungry but needing to rest to replenish her energy for her next attempt. Once she caught her breath, Busara took to a vantage point for a better view. Instead of prey, Turani, Waffle's son, made a special appearance, leading to an endearing moment between him and Busara. After a few failed attempts at hunting, Busara decided to stop for a light refreshment.
Here. I thought they might be lying down in one of the dams. We did find a water source here with a warthog that was knee-deep in it, but no sign of any of the hyenas. I'm sure they are around. There were wild dogs in the area yesterday, and the lions are also in the area. So I think there is a few food choices and distractions for them to go and figure out. We did see, or I saw, a resident female hyena named Heart yesterday, which I did not identify straight off. That was the help with one of one of the viewers. It is the only female I had not met yet of that clan, of the Juma clan. And she was also accompanied by a young male called Comet, who was also, they were following the wild dogs. And they just happened to appear, and the wild dogs were quite excited for a few seconds. And then they all laid down, and then the hyenas figured out these dogs were not hunting today and moved off. I think they got the hint better first than we did. I was convinced that they were on the hunt, the dogs, but it appeared they were all fast asleep for the rest of the day. But this warthog was actually quite entertaining in the water for a few minutes ago, but he decided to go off and graze. James, got a question. Are the horses' flight instinct triggered on safari? Like all animals, most animals, they do have a flight instinct. They're also actually part of the food chain. And yes, they do have a flight instinct, but having a rider on top of them that knows what he's doing, it helps them to actually fight against that and actually put it into the flight, into a fight mode. So yes, by keeping your legs on and holding the horse up front, it puts it into a fight mode. So normally they will, especially if lions pitch up, their instinct is to flee, is to flight. But with having a rider there, they tend to, or they need a helping hand to stay there and fight. Not actually fight, but to stand their ground. And that does help to change the whole behavior of the hunt or whatever was happening with the horses at the time. It doesn't have to be with lions. It could just be just a pheasant or a francolin or something popping out in front of them, and the horse's instinct is to run away. That is their natural instinct. But yes, by changing that, by changing everything about the horse with the rider on top, that does help. Okay. We're all talking about the flight instinct. That warthog there, he has the fight and flight instinct. He, if cornered or if something is chasing him and he goes down a warthog hole, his fight instinct kicks in very quickly. I have been walking past one of his holes, a hole, and had one come out at an incredible speed. And as you know, they have these very sharp tusks, and he wanted to take me on, he or she. It'll happen so quickly I didn't quite catch it. So yes, they do have, if they are cornered, they know how to fight. But most of the time, their instinct is to flee. If they can get away, they will run. As you know, the tail goes up and they flee. But their fight instinct is very strong when cornered, but their flee instinct is actually far greater if they know they can get away. Okay, I'm going to let you go back to Patrick. We're going to go back to Patrick for an update.
Well, I have just about exhausted all of my options looking for these Owinos. I'm not really sure where else to look now. I'm really starting to suspect that that male lion may have something to do with the fact that they have been so elusive today. But speaking of fight and flight, the theme for today's drive, the buffalo hunts, I was just thinking back on them, and the first one, there was a bit of a mixture of fight and flight in the buffaloes. They fought for the first, their initial reaction was flight. So they bolted to start with, and then they turned around and decided to fight, which worked. It helped get the lions away. And then once they were able to get a clean break, and once the lions were exhausted, they went flight mode again and just legged it way off. But then the second hunt we saw, it was pretty much all fight. So the end of the hunt, the lions were still very close to the buffalo, but they had just managed to fight them off enough to wear them out and not make them want to go back. And it did seem to be mostly the younger ones involved with the hunt, so maybe that was a little bit of parental wisdom to stay back once they saw that they were not going to get that buffalo. But yeah, so there was a whole mixture of tactics deployed between fight and flight with those buffaloes. Wondering if that's lions or if I'm seeing things. Yep, I am seeing things. Okay. Alrighty, so I have had some great times with the Owino Pride. I've had a lot of intimate experiences with them over the last week or two. Some ups and some downs. Let's go look at one of the very, very ups. We caught up with the 4 lionesses and 1 young sub-adult male of the Owino Pride as they traversed their territory. Crisscrossing through the long grass, we followed them to this magnificent sight of 3 sweet, playful cubs. For these 3 cubs, the world is new, fresh, and exciting. And as they relish in this beautiful feeling, they will play throughout the day and into the night.
The hungry cubs will then take a break for a drink of mother's milk.
That was definitely a highlight for me, stumbling upon those 3 cubbies. But unfortunately, since then, as I've mentioned a few times over the last couple of days, none to be seen. Last time we saw Button Up. We are holding on to the hopes that there is still one around. So the plan now is just to head back north. So where I was looking for the Owinos was essentially devoid of animals apart from a bird or 2 that were moving very quickly. So there were more animals down this way and a few giraffes, so hopefully I can pick some of them up. In the meantime, let's go back down to South Africa and see how Tristan is getting on now.
Well, good luck, Patrick. I can know how it feels when you feel like you've exhausted all avenues and you still have come up with nothing. It can be a little on the frustrating side, but not that Patrick or Lauren can moan at all, because both of them have had a stellar week with lots and lots of sightings of various animals. So they've had a good time, and we are in very much the same boat as Patrick at the moment. We've checked pretty much everywhere where I would imagine that these leopards would have gone. There's just one more place that I want to check and one more road, but so far no real sign of them anywhere here. So the only tracks we found were those tracks that have been driven over by a vehicle, which is not ideal. It certainly makes life a lot harder. I was just listening to an update, but it's inside Buffelshoek, so that's not going to help us at all at this stage. And like I say, we've checked pretty much everywhere, and so is Rusty on the sort of southwestern side, which is the side where Hukamuri often spends a lot of his time. And so, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like much sign of him there. But we were spoiled earlier in the week where we had Hukamuri and we saw that he'd grabbed himself a porcupine, and then, well, he had an unwanted visitor that joined him at the sighting.
Any leopard understands just how precious a meal is. Therefore, Hukamuri wasted no time as he safely hoisted his kill. Once the kill was supported in the boughs of the tree, he went to rest. Unfortunately, a carcass rotting in the summer sun gives off enough of alluring scent on the wind, but unwanted company is never too far off. This hyena slowly approached Hukamuri, but soon realized with the food safely tucked away, an encounter with the big male was an unnecessary risk. With his confidence reaffirmed, Hukamuri spent the rest of his time doing what all cats do best: sleeping, stretching, grooming, and recuperating. Resting is after all the best remedy for mending wounds.
Well, that's the life of a predator out in the Sabi Sands. It goes for all of them, really, is that the smell of a carcass as it rots is going to attract the attention of many animals, whether it be hyenas, lions, or leopards. And so that's kind of the tough part about it, but at least Hukamuri has the ability to hoist kills, which will obviously reduce competition with particularly the likes of hyenas in this part of the world. And so he managed to kind of keep his carcass nice and safe, and he got a really kind of good meal, and then got to tend to all those little puncture wounds that he had from the porcupine quills. Now, a lot of people were very concerned about him, but he's absolutely fine, given that we saw him the next morning after that, and he had quill-free and looking very happy and fat and sausage-like next to a water hole, so he was absolutely fine. Now, talking about porcupine quills, it seems as though Jamie has somehow whipped one out of her magic hat and has a porcupine quill she wants to show all of you.
I do actually have a porcupine quill. It was very handily right next to me, sitting under the microscope. But those boxing gloves were so truly, truly revolting that I just feel the need to pick underneath my fingernails with it while I'm sitting here, because it was just so gross. Anyway, there's the instrument of terror for a leopard like Hukamuri. Of course, there you go, another example of overriding natural fear responses, or perhaps ignoring them, or perhaps being jolly silly. in the search for a meal. One really doesn't know exactly what it is, as Tristan has mentioned earlier, that makes leopards tackle porcupines like this. Obviously, the confidence to know that they can, essentially. Another aspect that ties in quite nicely with that was Tristan's discussion over Hukumuri asserting himself, or his dominance, and gaining confidence with the presence of that hyena and the fact that the hyena got up and moved away. Our leopard cubs from a very early age are terrified of hyenas. Hyenas represent one of the bigger threats out here. Apart from male leopards, they're probably the biggest threat, male leopards and lions, to new hyena cubs. Now, they've got to get to the point, and it is usually for a female like Tlalamba, a point that she will never reach, where she will never actually be able to stand up to a hyena. She'll never have that confidence. It's possible, but it's unlikely unless she's really, really hungry. Most of the time, she'll turn and run in the presence of a hyena. But Hosana reached the point where he learned that he's actually big enough and strong enough to, on the odd occasion, if it's suitable, actually stand up to a hyena, which is what our next clip is about. So many of you will remember this. It was just after I returned back from Kenya and saw Hosana and how much he had grown, and boy, had he grown. Now watch his body language here. He spotted a hyena, as you can see, or as you would have seen, it was Koza. And slowly but surely, he's practicing all sorts of important skills here. First of all, there's something slightly playful about this approach, but at the same time, that can switch in a moment. And there you go, he's trotting forward. He is stalking this hyena. Now, there's no serious intent here. But this is all about learning where his boundaries lie and whether or not he feels as though he's strong enough or capable enough to be able to ultimately take on a hyena. And he is. At the stage that he's at, he's now over 3 years old, he's big, he's bulky, and he could actually, if he chose to, hold one hyena off a kill on the ground. But of course, most of the time, again, leopards want to avoid that conflict, so what they'll do here is they will take their prey up into trees. Leopards don't do that in areas where there are no hyenas and no lions. Most of the time, that instinct falls. I don't know if it's the instinct that falls away, but they obviously learn that they don't learn from their parents. Their parents don't hoist, or their mothers don't hoist, because they don't need to. So I don't know if that instinct falls away, if it is instinctive or if it's learned behavior. We don't really know. Probably a combination of the two, but they don't hoist. Now, that playful behavior is all part of the learning process, and the same applies to those playful winnow cubs and the sausage tree cubs, as we've seen them grow up over the course of the last few weeks and months. What's interesting is that what the scientists have seen with playful kittens is that they actually demonstrate the same physiological effects on their body when they play fight as they would in a fight or flight situation. Now, Roshni wants to know if hyenas fight more than leopards. Did I get that right, Murray? I think that was the question from Roshni. I would say yes. I would say yes that they do. And I think that's probably for a combination of different factors. I think that it is because their social structure is so much more complex than that of a solitary leopard. A solitary leopard lives on its own, doesn't want to risk injury because it never knows where the next meal is coming from. It is entirely reliant upon itself. And, of course, once it reaches that age where it is old enough to defend a territory, it also doesn't want to lose out on defending that territory. As you saw with Tingana's illness and weakness last year, all that it takes is absence for another male leopard to move in. Hyenas have a slightly different situation. They are governed by this hierarchy that they fall into, and that hierarchy has to be enforced, otherwise it doesn't apply anymore. So just in the same way that, and I often use this analogy, just in the same way within a business, a small business or a small company, the manager has to at times assert authority, because otherwise people become undisciplined. They start to take chances. It's just human nature. They start to get ideas above their station. They slack off sometimes, or they don't necessarily do exactly what they need to do as they should do it. The manager has to assert authority. So do higher ranked hyenas. What's interesting about that, of course, is that the mid-ranked hyenas have the highest stress levels. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not the long-term effects of stress have any impact on their hormone levels, because they seem to exhibit higher stress hormone levels than the high rankers or the low rankers. So yes, I would say that hyenas definitely fight more than leopards do, and that's of course because they live in a much more complex society. Baboons fight more than leopards do. Anything that lives together in a group with some sort of complex social structure will fight more than a leopard does. A leopard fights purely to defend its food or steal food and defend a territory. There's other aspects to it. Yes. Oh, sorry, I was about to answer Paula's question, yes, without actually listening to the full extent of it. Paula wants to know if you find that animals choose flight or fight more at night. I didn't actually hear which one it was because those two words are giving me terrible trouble today. It depends which species we're talking about. So, for something like choose flight. For something like a herbivore, actually, I'm trying to think. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. For something like a herbivore, they're going to try and keep an eye on the predator. Remember, we haven't even touched on the fact that when they're running away or when they're fighting back, that is part of the fight or fight response. So when it depends on the weather, it depends on the darkness. In cold, windy, cloudy, dark weather, a lot of the time the animals will just run and run and run, and they'll be jumpy and nervous all the time. Where it's a full moon night and they can see the predator, they will still respond in the way that they would during the day, which is they'll watch. They'll always try and keep an eye on the predator if they can. For other predators, with human beings, it becomes a different kettle of fish when they're responding to humans. Cats will run away from humans on foot during the day. Cats will approach humans on foot at night, most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Their personalities don't change, but their comfort levels do, and they become much braver when it comes to nighttime or nocturnal activities. Instinctively, they know that they have the advantage. So that's quite a complex question because there's a few different species that it could be applied to. It's a difficult one. There's more to that answer than I've given, but I'd have to think about it a little bit further. While I think, off you pop across to a very tall creature that even when confronted with lions will often stand its ground and fight.
Sorry, I was only just told I was live then whilst I was getting into that. So we are here with the Maasai giraffe, one of the 4 giraffe species. Giraffa tipple-skirchy, they call this one. And of course, it's called the Maasai giraffe because we are here in the Masai Mara of Kenya. They can go to 20 feet tall, so the tallest of all of the giraffe species. Now, they do have a bit of a funny structure up on the top of their skull there, and they are not actually true horns. They are a structure called ossicones, and they get their name ossicones because to be able to form, they need to undergo ossification. And what that is the hardening and calcifying of cartilage. So the ossicones will start off as lumps of cartilage, not actually attached to the skull, and then as the giraffe grows and matures, the ossicones will start to, the cartilage will start to ossify, and this will eventually attach it to the skull and make them harder and longer until they are fully grown. It takes several years for them to actually reach their full length. We'll see in males that they are often bald, whereas in females they have a little tuft of hair. And this is just because males fight using their head in a process called necking. So they will whack their heads against one another, and this causes the hair to obviously come out of the ossicones. So it's a good way to tell males from females once they get to the age where they start to fight or play fight. Apologies, we'll hear some vehicle noise just behind me. So, a very peaceful sighting out here. I did hear just from another passing vehicle that there was a leopard just up from where we were searching around before, but we have come just a little bit too far down now. Yes, unfortunately, giraffe numbers are decreasing quickly, as with many other animals. They are starting to, yes, reach that kind of critical stage, unfortunately. It's a bit unfortunate, but yes, it's happening with a lot of animals due to habitat loss and climate change, a number of factors. But it's good to see that there is a nice, stable population here in the Mara Triangle. So it looks like there is some mothers here with their young. And I saw a male, oh, he's ran off in front of me now, but there was a male. So Jordan wants to know what the purpose of the ossicones are. Well, they are used in fighting with the males when they do whack their heads against one another. And so it will kind of figure out who is the dominant male. Well, Jamie still has some more topics to speak to you about on Fight and Flight. I'm sure they're all very interesting. Let's go check it out.
I'm sorry, I've got this terrible image in my mind of a giraffe with two ice cream cones on the top of their head rather than ossicones. Don't know where that came from. It's been a strange day. So we're talking about the prevalence of fighting between whether or not hyenas fight more than leopards do. Now, typically, clan fighting sort of within the various or between the various members of the same clan is relatively common. And I think what actually kicks off those really nasty, serious fights that we've witnessed, for example, Corky and Pretty ganging up on Gwen all those years ago, or that poor hyena that Scott had that had its foot completely crunched and its ears torn off. I think what happens there is you get such high levels of stress hormone being released, and those hyenas go into a mood, or a mode is actually what I was trying to say. I can't say that word either, that they cannot get out of very easily. So they really, like a dog that starts attacking something and actually cannot stop. I think that the same applies to the hyenas. They get really, really stressed and they cannot pull themselves out of that because, as spoken about, that physiological effect of the fight or flight response actually does take away some of the animal's cognitive ability, and it takes quite a bit to then overcome that and respond in a different way. Yet, when hyenas fight each other, which is quite rare outside of their clans, so when you get something known as a clan war, I was totally fascinated to see the actual way that it is carried out, even when there is a kill involved, which is what happened in a scuffle between North Clan and their nearby neighbors, the Happy Zebras. So this zebra originally was stolen from the Owino Pride by a triumphant clan of hyenas known as the Happy Zebras. They were very happy zebras, well, very happy zebra hyenas, as they tucked into their meal, until they were confronted by a rival group. They were actually right in the center of North Clan territory, and it turned into a confrontation that was truly extraordinary to witness because there was very little physical contact between the two clans. So what would happen was that North Clan would rally and they'd all group together, they'd make a lot of noise, and then they'd go completely silent and they'd start charging forward, and all you could see was just these eyes bouncing about. Then they'd turn and retreat, and then there'd be confusion for a bit longer, and then all of a sudden there'd be the next rush of completely silent approach, and then happy zebras just moved off. They moved away. There's Waffles leading the charge, moving backwards and forwards. This was such an amazing sighting. Covered in mud, she's run through a lugger at some point before this. Look at those glowing eyes there. Charge and retreat. Fight, flight, fight, flight. Fight or flee. It was such an amazing sighting, that, because so little actually happened in the sense of fighting or injuries, but the noises and the activity was truly astounding to behold. And I imagine that those effects, for something that's as intelligent as a clan of hyenas, I imagine that the effects of a loss like that might actually be quite far-reaching. I think there's probably a good chance that the happy zebras didn't stray into North Clan territory again for a while after that. They didn't, as far as I know. Now, that was the day before that Waffles gave birth to Ilovo and Grenadine, her two little syrupy cubs. So she's absolutely amazing for in the final stages of pregnancy. It's quite astounding. She never ate. She did not eat that night. It's quite amazing. Right, what was I going to say about that? So there's a demonstration of how a group of animals works together and cognitively overcomes the stress of that moment, and at the same time doesn't run. They've fought off lions already, doesn't run away from a rival clan, but relies on the social aspect of their behavior to give them courage, and that we see quite a bit with, for example, the buffalo overcoming their flee instinct to come back and fight off lions. Now, there's a group of lions that are very familiar with this whole process. Their name is the Nkuhuma Pride, and guess what? Rusty's found them. I don't know what to do.
Well, we did cover a bit of ground to get you, because there was a bit of fight and flight instinct happening earlier with half the pride. Apparently they were on the hunt for buffalo, apparently. I don't know who spotted them, but I just got a message over the radio and we headed here. But we've just found two of them. The one has actually got, this is part of the Nkuhumas. They were seen this morning, all of them together, but then right now we just have two, and they are contact calling. So we are guessing the others are not too far away. Either they're going to get up and go look for them, or they're going to attract the other ones to them. They have got a watering hole here, which might help to draw the others close, or the others might have been the ones on the hunt. If anyone can ID her, that'll be greatly appreciated. I'm not too sure who she is. I know the one lying next to her has got a huge scar on her back, which I have seen footage of her over the last couple of months of when she first sustained that injury and how it's healed. It's one of our identifying markers, but it doesn't seem to hamper her at all. I'm just hoping if we go silent, we'll hear the... she's making this it's a contact call. It's not very forced, so I don't think she's too phased about missing anybody. I think she just wants to know where the family is. These are both fully grown females. Yep, she's on the move. I didn't hear any contact back, so I think she just might be moving on to find somebody else. Oh, it's actually a male, sorry. It's actually one of the younger males, so yes, I got that completely wrong. I think the obvious sign between the legs was quite an obvious case. But this one here, judging by the scar, is definitely one that has been noticed before. Now it is... Okay. We're just going to watch them for a bit longer and see what they do. I'm going to head over to Jamie with a special clip.
Well done, Rusty. Last minute lions for the end of our Safari Lives. It is the end of our Safari Lives episode. We've only got a few short minutes left. So without any further ado, we'd like to show you the sighting that all of us unanimously decided is most certainly the sighting of the week.
Cold and rainy mornings may be uncomfortable, but the bush always finds a way to lift the gloomiest of moods. Nothing beats playful elephants. Watching this baby elephant take advantage of its older and much larger companion's inability to stand up quickly brought joy to people around the world. As the saying goes, patience, persistence, and perspiration make an unbeatable combination for success. Somehow, the exuberance of elephants transcends all boundaries, and high spirits seem contagious on a grey morning.
My absolute favourite part of that little sample of what was truly an amazing elephant sighting was the synchronised trunk waving. That was my favourite. And the older one, the bigger one, got up and sort of waved its trunk, and the little one went, "Oh, I can do that too." It was utterly adorable and certainly put a smile on all of our faces. And you know that sighting must truly have been extraordinary, because we also had a magical elephant sighting, and Kirsty just kept saying, "Sorry, I'm not cutting to you, I'm not cutting to you." Now, please remember that you are going to send your questions through, and your next topic for Safari Lives. I'm sorry, the countdown towards the end of the show has taken me by surprise. Thank you for coming, and good night.